Hi guys, coming up on today's news, Asuka loses a tooth on Monday Night Raw.
I've got some potential spoilers for WWE's WWE title plans at WrestleMania 37.
The Miz will defend the WWE Championship against Bobby Lashley on next week's Raw.
We have an update on Samoa Joe's WWE injury status and return.
And AEW's Anna Jay looks set to miss between 6 and 12 months of action. I'm Adam Wilborn.
And I'm Andy Murray.
And this is the news. And let's drive straight into it with this horrific looking injury. Many of you will have seen the clip or the gif or whatever it is, the close-up image of Asuka getting kicked right in the chops on last night's Monday Night Raw. It was in the midst of that tag match where Asuka and Charlotte Flair, that infamous team that are seemingly still together, teamed up to face the women's tag team champions Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. And at one point, I think Asuka had Nia Jax in an armbar, and Shayna thought, how can I break this up? Kick Asuka as hard as I can in the face. Look, obviously, this was a mistake, and I know we go hard on people like Nia Jax for this, but at the end of the day, Shayna Baszler, considering how hard she can hurt people, and her background, she's generally considered a pretty safe worker. And you can see in the clip that people have been sharing, Andy, she does nail her pretty much straight in the face, but immediately goes down to, I suppose, in storyline, lay in some ground and pound, but probably to go, I'm so sorry, how many teeth have you lost?
Yeah, doing her job as a pro and getting down and going, are you okay? Are you okay? That's how it's done. We haven't had any kind of medical update on Asuka at the moment. Like, WWE haven't released or commented, and there have been no reports like on her status. But that's a pretty goddamn stiff kick. It's one of those things, man. In pro wrestling, occasionally stuff like this happens and people get hurt, and you give someone like Shayna Baszler leeway, because she doesn't have the track record with this stuff that Nia Jax, for example, her tag team partner, does. So coming out of this, it's important to acknowledge, yes, it's an accident, but also just, hope that Asuka's okay and it's nothing more than cosmetic damage, because it's obviously not as gruesome looking as the infamous Cesaro image with the twofers. However, it's never nice, and that was a stiff connection. It's pretty brutal.
It gives me flashbacks to when Sheamus, I think, kicked one of Jeff Hardy's tooth out. That's what I was. Man. And fair play to Asuka. She finished the match eating a leg drop as part of that finish. So she's hard as nails, isn't she? And almost like they should probably push her more, but what do I know, Andy?
Yeah, it's weird. She has a championship round her waist and everything. Maybe a push would be good. Let's move over to WrestleMania 37. Let's talk about WWE's plans for the WWE title, which is currently held by The Miz after he shocked the world at Elimination Chamber, cashing in his Money in the Bank briefcase. But per this new report here from WrestleMania, not from WrestleMania, from WrestleVotes, The Miz is not going to be involved in the WWE title match at WrestleMania 37. As of right now, Bobby Lashley is. And this report is particularly pertinent given the people involved after the match that WWE booked for next week on last night's Raw.
Yes, indeed. The Miz will defend his WWE Championship, as I said, against Bobby Lashley on Monday Night Raw next week. The show started with The Miz being an arrogant bastard, basically boasting about regaining a championship he held, 10 odd years ago, or whatever it was. And Bobby Lashley came down and said, let's be honest, you wouldn't have been holding that title if it hadn't have been for my help. And MVP explained that as a sort of compensation for what Morrison did to Lashley and as a sort of workaround for Bobby Lashley getting a title shot, that's why Lashley helped Miz, as we all kind of assumed on Sunday night. Miz was given a 1 hour sort of ultimatum to make the decision of when this is going to go down. He stalled. Out came bloody Shane McMahon for no apparent reason, along with Postman Pierce. Braun Strowman interrupted. Braun Strowman said, who's going to cut these hands? Or something along those lines. He got himself a match in the main event against Bobby Lashley if Braun Strowman won, he was going to be added to that title match. And Bobby Lashley destroyed him in like 3 minutes. kicked out of the running power slam, nailed him with a spear. 1, 2, 3. Not only that, but The Miz tried to jump Bobby Lashley post-match and got destroyed for his troubles even. And The Miz was laid out. Bobby Lashley stood tall with the WWE Championship as it was confirmed. Bobby Lashley, The Miz, next week for the WWE Championship. And I suppose, Andy, Drew McIntyre, conspicuous by his absence on last night's show.
Yeah, not present at all last night, was he? But Sheamus is still angling for a match with him, so perhaps that'll be his direction for the immediate arc, which would be Fastlane. And yeah, I think when The Miz won the title, I don't think there was a single person in the world who was like, wow, this is going to be a really long title reign. I thought he was going to lose it last night. I called that on the news yesterday. If not then Fastlane. It looks like it's maybe going to happen next week. And hey, Bobby Lashley becoming WWE champion, I think that's pretty damn awesome.
Yes.
He's waited a long time for something like this. And he's probably in the best form of his WWE career at the moment. Large Robert has been tremendous as part of the Hurt Business, and he's one of the most protected guys in the entire company. So you can plot all kinds of fantasy booking courses with this. I would suggest that the most likely outcome is that Lashley wins next week, or maybe he gets screwed next week and wins it at Fastlane. Yeah, that could possibly happen, because then you can go into 2 arcs and then defend it against WrestleMania. You can come up with whoever you want for that. Drew McIntyre would make sense because he has beef with Lashley after Lashley softened him up for The Miz. You could throw Brock Lesnar in there if Brock fancies working during the Bastard, because Bobby has wanted that match for a long time. We know this because he says it quite often in interviews and stuff. So you could even do it. Won't mention that prospect because we're going to talk about that in the question. Just spoil the question, I'm very sorry. But there's all kinds of exciting options. I love the idea of Bobby Lashley as WWE champion. I think he's great. I love him. He's fun to watch in everything he does. He's just a crazy, massive, gigantic powerhouse who's an absolute blast, particularly with, I almost called him MJF, MVP, and his dodgy knee as his manager. It's been a good run. Looking forward to seeing where it goes. Hey man, look, a lot of people were really annoyed when The Miz won the title, and a lot of people weren't happy about it. But if it means Bobby Lashley getting the belt, I'm 100% in on this.
Yeah, not to jump the gun, but you have to assume Lashley, as we reported there, is going to be holding that WWE Championship, even if it is just sort of transition it back onto Drew McIntyre and give him that WrestleMania moment. A lot of the time people say, oh, this person deserves it for their years of service. And Lashley does, but Lashley also deserves it because right now he is one of the best things about Monday Night Raw. Leo Rush, I saw tweeting a gif of him and Bobby Lashley just... Like, he's been great for so long. He's just been so mismanaged. Like, he's, in terms of physicality, he is right up there. And it's not happened yet, so we don't want to, jinx it or anything. But by the looks of things and the way WWE are presenting him, quite right that he will be WWE champion. And very excited to see how this plays out next week, Andy.
Hell yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be fun. And Braun versus Shane McMahon, that's a thing that seems to be happening. So, you take the really good with the opposite of really good.
Braun is cursed at WrestleMania, isn't he? He is cursed.
He really is, man. He really is. But speaking of people who are cursed, Samoa Joe. Hey, poor guy. What a year and a half this fella's had. But he's been interviewed by Rick Ucchino of Sportskeeda. Shouts to Rick, by the way. Lovely guy. Talking about all kinds of different things. One of them, his medical status, his recovery from injury. What's going on with Joe, who hasn't wrestled now in over a year. Crazy how time flies. But I've got a big long quote here from Joe. I'm just going to read the whole thing because there's no point in me editorializing this. He said the following. I just want to reassure people that, at this point, WWE Medical is doing the best for my health and my well-being, and I'm appreciative of it. So we're taking our time. We're making sure I'm healthy as I can be. And we are, I think that's essentially it, I'm not putting a timetable on it because the type of injury is not something that I want to rush, obviously for obvious reasons. So that's essentially the update. Obviously too, there's been some hold-ups from a technical standpoint with the Global Bastard going on, that's not a direct quote, and availability of medical personnel, but for the most part we're taking a careful, measured approach. And though I don't think my in-career is over by a long shot, I'm appreciative of the recovery time, and that my health is being respected at a premium. So Joe's had terrible luck, like we talked on there. He was injured in like the late summer of 2019. He came back, and then it seemed like 4 or 5 weeks later, he suffered this concussion while he was filming a WWE commercial. Then he fell afoul of the wellness policy. He was suspended for 30 days while he was injured, and he's been on the Raw announce booth ever since. Still recovering. A lot of people thought he was going to show up in the Royal Rumble. That didn't come to pass. While we're all itching to see Joe back, however, the most important thing, obviously, in all of these situations is that the health and well-being of the performer is put first. That seems to be the case with Joe here. I cannot wait to see the guy back in the ring. He's absolutely tremendous in every regard. But we got to be careful, and it's good to hear that that is the case.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that he's not completely ruling out a return, of course, and like you say, Andy, he just needs to take his time and come back as and when he is ready. And for me, he needs to be world champion when he comes back. I know WWE have a history of people going, oh, if you get injured or you have these sort of problems, we won't put the title on you. I'm sorry, it's Samoa Joe. He needs to be world champion. Like you say, take your time with your recovery, Joe, because guaranteed, when he comes back, the roof is going to come off the place. And imagine if that was, for example, at next year's Royal Rumble. I'd love to see it. But yeah, rubbish news. Get well soon, Joe. And speaking of injuries, let's talk about AEW's Anna Jay. Some awful news coming out about her. It was ahead of her supposed match with Britt Baker in AEW's Women's World Title Eliminator Tournament. Unfortunately, AEW have announced she's going to miss between 6 to 12 months of action after suffering what sounds like a severe shoulder injury. After AEW tweeted the news, Anna Jay quote tweeted it saying, "I'm super upset about this. All I can do now is put in the work to come back stronger. Thanks for all the love and support, everyone. It means a lot to me." Anna Jay, one of the real breakout stars of AEW in the last year or so, Andy, and of course our thoughts go to her, and I hope she recovers very soon.
Yeah, this is rubbish. Really terrible news. She's so young into her career. She's so I think she's only had like a couple of dozen matches or something, and to have an injury like this at this age is really rough. You know, there's no such thing as a good timed injury, but this is an awfully timed injury for Anna Jay in her development. On the bright side, she's young, so she's maybe going to heal a little quicker than somebody who's been through more wars and has more wear and tear on them. And by all accounts, hopefully she'll make a full and complete and swift recovery. She's someone who, for her inexperience, is already really, really good at her job. Like, she carries herself like someone with infinitely more experience, and she's already pretty damn good in the ring. She's charismatic. I think she's somebody on the AEW roster who has future star written all over them. So it really sucks, but I do think we'll see Anna Jay on TV still. I think we'll see her on Being the Elite doing stupid skits with John Silver and all the other guys in the Dark Order. I think we'll see her ringside with Ty Conti every now and then as well. She was pulled out of the women's tournament last night. That sucked because her versus Britt would have been really, really good. But it is what it is, man. It's gonna suck for her, but it sounds like she's got a really strong support system around her, and I'm looking forward to seeing her come back and kick some ass better than ever.
Exactly. Get well soon, Anna Jay, and get well soon, Samoa Joe. Let's move on to your Twitter questions at WhatCulture WWE. If you want to get in touch with us, Jake starts us off talking about Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre. Jake says, "I wouldn't hate throwing Brock Lesnar in there and making it a triple threat hoss battle at WrestleMania. That would be tasty, Andy Murray."
Big beefy boys indeed. Yeah, absolutely. This is the question that I totally ruined in the first news story by giving it away. But yeah, I think that's an exciting prospect. Yeah. It gets some big, massive, beefy men that can just slap the sweat off each other for 15 or so minutes in the ring at the same time. And I think a lot of people would go for that. My personal preference in WWE, and it's just me, I prefer singles matches. I think the triple threat matches in WWE, sometimes it's like one guy's waiting around while the other two wrestle and they come back in, and it's like this system. But I think these three guys could make it work. So whatever WWE end up doing with a combination of those three dudes, I like all of them, and I think it'd be great. Yeah, I like the sound of that. Or I'd also be happy with Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre, with Brock being saved for SummerSlam. Because we need fans in attendance, and fans didn't get to be in person when they gave us sort of a shortened version of
Brock versus Drew. So that'd be good too. Ron gives us our second question of the day, saying, does the lack of unknown jobbers contribute to WWE's lack of star power? In the 90s, big stars would build names by beating unknowns senseless until a big challenge came along. Would top talent benefit from bringing back real jobbers?
Oh, hell yeah. I've been an advocate of this for years, man. Jobbers are like such an inspirational, that's not the right word, instrumental part of like the star making process. You come in, you beat guys up in like 2 minutes, you put them away, you look dominant with your finisher. Yeah, it's not something you want to do forever and ever and ever. Like, I thought the Ryback stuff early on was maybe a little bit overlong, but there's definitely a balance you can strike there, and it's weird that WWE don't really do that anymore. You have a new guy coming up or a new girl coming up from NXT. Rhea Ripley's coming to Raw. How sick would it be if she just, smashed people for like 4 or 5 weeks and then moved on progressively to someone bigger and bigger? It's a great way to make people look dominant. It's a great way to establish people. It's worked for decades. It blows my mind that they don't do it more often, but I think they should.
Yeah, I think it worked really well, even though it sort of descended slightly into comedy with Braun Strowman. But yeah. The fact, it just feels weird if you chuck them in, because you kind of have to let them go slightly 50-50 with people. Like, there was a bit last night watching Raw where Damian Priest was just dominating Angel Garza, and then they were clearly like, we've got a few more minutes left, let's get Angel Garza on offense. And it was like, no, go to the finish. He was looking great. I mean, he still looked great. He's got Bad Bunny in his corner, so he's got that rub as well. But yeah, absolutely. Just run through some jobbers to start people off on the main roster. And I'm going to talk about Rhea Ripley as well in a second. Before that, though, Sean Acklin says, I feel like Japanese Joshi wrestler Ryo Mizunami is the female Kazuchika Okada, just like Millie McKenzie is the female Pete Dunne. What female wrestler would you choose to play the same gimmick as a male? You can do vice versa instead as well if you want.
Interesting question. I'm genuinely a fan of just people kind of standing out on their own. However, that being said, she's got prior form for biting people and drawing blood. Why not go all the way and make Abaddon the new Gangrel? Get her in that frilly shirt, get her some proper fangs. She could be a zombie vampire. Why the hell not?
I love it. We sort of workshopped this earlier because I was like, we need a female Orange Cassidy. Andy Murray suggested Dakota Kai, which I actually think would work really, really well. But yeah, that's the gimmick that I would like to see recreated. If we're going to reverse it, let's say, just off the top of my head, I don't know, Kane doing the gimmick of Dr. Britt Baker. It'll never work. Right, let's move on to today's and finally, and Andy mentioned it there, Rhea Ripley coming soon to Monday Night Raw. That was teased quite a lot on last night's show. And Mick Foley, friend of the channel, and the man selling some brilliant face masks designed by our very own Phil Chambers, where all the proceeds go to the Cauliflower Alley Club, tweeted, it's vital that WWE not mess around when it comes to pushing Rhea Ripley. Please don't allow her to sort of suffer a 50-50 fate. Strap that rocket to her back and see how far she can fly. I just wanted to reinforce that, Andy, because I'm scared they're going to be like, let's give her some losses to start her off on the main roster. She needs to fight for the title at WrestleMania and win.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you push a wrestler, man. That's how you push a wrestler. We've kind of forgotten it over the past couple of decades with the kind of WWE dominance of the market, but that's always how it's worked. You make people look like winners, man. That's how you get people over. You don't get people over by having them job out or go 50-50 with someone they should be shellacking. So I'm all in favor of this. Shout outs to Mick as well. Tremendous call there. Yeah, just give her the belt and beat everybody. Why not?
Exactly. Hardcore Holly style. Let us know your thoughts on that and all today's news stories in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Myself and the Daddy Boys sitting down to review Monday Night Raw a little bit later on today. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there, follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Hardcore Holly. Why the hell not?
What a legend. Was he going to be a spaceman at one point on ECW with a little monkey?
Yeah, and he was a race car driver back in the day as well. Bombastic Bob, everybody.
What a guy. I'm terrified of him, but what a guy. Follow me on Twitter at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at What Culture WWE. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon. Please don't hurt me, Hardcore Holly.
Was he bombastic or was he bodacious? I can't remember.